This chapter, chapter 6, is about managing people. I have been waiting for this one just to jump all over you, Barry, because I really wonder what you mean by managing people. Too often, well, not too often, I wonder if people think managing people means, hey, you go do this and you go do that, and it sounds like manipulating people.
And again, poor managers do manipulate people,
Hmm.
but good managers find ways to utilize the giftedness of people so that they develop and are able to perform functions and duties and activities on their own and with their own giftedness.
Hmm.
When I was in business, I worked for many years for a company, and when I first became a manager,
Mm-hmm.
I had a small staff. Well, I was used to supervising, and what supervising is you give tasks to people, but you as the supervisor, you maintain all the control. You tell people what to do and when to do it, and the person that does the job has no decision making. They just
Ah,
execute. But when you
okay.
manage people, you have to learn how to give people guidelines and parameters and allow them to meet an objective by doing it on their own through however they've been trained or the skills and gifts that they have. And
Hmm.
that's a big difference. And when I first became a manager, um, I remember I was very tired. I was going through lots of struggles. I was working hours and hours, and I was just worn out. And finally, one of my subordinates came into my office one day and said, Barry, you know, how come you're not letting me do my job? I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, you're supervising me. You're always telling me what to do. And it's like a light bulb went off in my head. All of a sudden
Yeah.
I realized, now I know why I'm so tired. I'm not only doing my job, but I'm trying to do his job too. And what he was really
Ah.
telling me is to let him do the job according to his own abilities. And here's what I did. I learned that being a manager means helping someone else develop their own skills and gifts to get the job done. And what happened, I did that. I finally learned to let go. I had to train him, of course, and I had to still
Okay.
provide parameters. It was still my responsibility, but I allowed him the freedom to do the work in the way that best suited him. And you know what happened?
What?
6 months later, I was able to promote him into a management job. And it was a
Ah.
very valuable lesson for me to learn that management is about helping the other person be better at what they do. Manipulation, on the other hand, is helping somebody or telling somebody to do something for your benefit, not for
Mm-hmm.
theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so management is about helping people grow and develop to be the person that God wants them to be.
Thanks, Barry. I think that helps at least me clear up in my head the difference between manipulation, supervision,
Mhm.
and management. Now, how does that then apply in a church setting?
Well, in ministry, ministry is really about people. When I worked for the telephone company, we always said we were in the communication business.
Yeah.
But in a church or a ministry, we're not in the religion business, we're in the people business. And so what we're
Ah,
about is helping people develop a relationship with God and helping people develop relationships with one another. That's why the church exists. And
indeed.
people are the church's greatest resource. In other words, we have people to do the work of ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And we want all people, or God would like all people to be involved in ministry. It's not just about the pastor, it's not just about the church elders or the council, but everyone is to be involved in ministry. So how do we get other people to get involved in ministry? Well, this is the process we call management of people, but you can also call it development of people. We're trying to
Ah,
develop
okay.
people
Okay.
to use the gifts that God has given them in service
Mm-hmm.
to the body of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just about telling people what to do, it's about letting them find how God wants to use them in service to the church.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when we do that well, we find that not only are the people blessed, but you find a lot more ministry going on. You find people doing things to serve God because of their love for God and their giftedness, and they don't even have to be told.
Well, sure, it gives them participation, and the phrase that we often use is ownership. They're part of
Absolutely.
it.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the key to managing people is helping the people that you're leading or overseeing is help them figure out how best they can serve the body of Christ with
Hmm.
the giftedness. And that's the goal of the leader, not to use them to build up the reputation of the leader, but to build up the skills and abilities of the person.
Indeed. Thank you. You know, as you were relating on managing and developing people, it occurred to me, Barry, that at our outreach centers, our blind leaders and sighted leaders deal not just with one group, but actually two groups of people that this applies to. Entering this chapter, I was thinking it was just our blind leaders working with people who are blind, help them find out what their gifts are. But I think this would also work with the sighted volunteers, the actually many places, is dozens of people who are helping out.
That's correct. Because people are people, regardless of
People are people.
their afflictions, their
Hmm.
difficulties. Bottom line, human beings are human beings, and we're all created in God's image, and we're all created with the same
Yeah.
kinds of desires and beliefs and wants.
With the sighted volunteers, there are some designated roles and designated activities that they're already doing, whether they're a driver, kitchen help, server. But yet, even within that, I can see how, even thinking back to the past chapter of spiritual gifts, will overlap on those roles that they may be gifted by God to do an act of mercy or do an act of helps with the sighted. Then
Yes.
we also, as the leader, need to see those who are blind and maybe are just coming to challenge them. Where is God gifting you? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Applies to everyone.
So, with that in mind, both the sighted and blind people involved at an outreach center, what are some things about people that we should know in order to help develop or manage them?
Sure. Well, there are some principles of managing people that apply to all people,
Okay.
regardless. And in our training we have 8, but let's focus on
Eight.
the first
Ooh.
4.
Yeah, let's do four at a time. That eight's too hard to remember.
Okay. And
And
the
they
first
are
4 are that number 1, people are unique.
unique,
Number 2, people want to belong.
belong,
Number 3, people want to participate.
participate,
And number 4 is that people want to be valued.
valued. Unique, belong, participate, value.
Right.
Okay, let's look at each one of them.
Okay. People are unique. You know, the Bible says that God created us uniquely in our mother's womb. That's from Psalm 139.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone is created uniquely. There are no two people that are exactly alike. Even twins have some differences in
Yeah.
personality sometimes. So there's no two people that are exactly alike. And so as a manager of people, you can't treat everybody as if they're exactly the same. You
Mm.
know, for example, everybody that lives in St. Louis, are they all the same? Is
Sure, we're
everyone?
all Cardinal fans.
No, they're not. Because I know some friends that are not Cardinal fans.
Oh, point well
Right.
taken.
And one time, you know, I live in Atlanta, and so my brother came down who's a big Cub fan, and I'm a Cub
Mm-hmm.
fan. So when the
Mm-hmm.
Cubs were in town, we went to a game.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got to the game, there were more Cub fans at the game than there were Atlanta
Oh
fans.
my goodness.
Because Atlanta is a city that has people from all over the country that come
Sure.
there. So it's just a unique thing to Atlanta. So we can't always assume because people come from the same town, the
Uh-huh.
same household, the
Uh-huh.
same school, the same church, that they are the same. I mean, you have a family, right? Are your
Mm-hmm.
2 daughters exactly the same?
Not at
My
all.
kids aren't.
Diametrically opposed.
Right. And there are things that my wife and I have in common, but we're different.
Okay.
We're not the same. So the thing to recognize is that people are unique and they need to be treated uniquely. And when we sometimes treat everybody exactly the same, we can run into problems.
Okay.
So we just need to recognize that.
They're
And
unique.
and what we're trying to do then is if we want to develop someone, we have to know who they are
Mm-hmm.
so that we can develop them according to their own skills and giftedness and experiences.
Okay.
Number 2 is that people want to belong. People
Oh
like to
boy.
be part of
Yeah.
something. You know, I can remember back when I was in grade school, you know, you want to be picked for the baseball team. And of course, you didn't want to be the last one picked, but you didn't want to not be picked.
That's true.
So
That's
you didn't care
true.
how you got in the game. You just want to be involved. And I think people want to belong
Yeah.
to something. And that's why people sometimes belong to clubs or belong to churches, even belong to a school. You take pride that I went to such and such high school, or I live in St. Louis. This is where I belong. It's my community.
That's an interesting concept, belong. That's a valuable one. And actually, you almost put a dagger through my heart with your first example about being picked for the baseball team. In fifth grade is when I had major eye problems, and I couldn't see but for a while until I had some. No, actually, it wasn't after surgeries even. I had lost better part of my sight, and I could only see the sunrise and sunset, and then that left. While they were picking baseball teams, I stood behind the screen and watched everyone play. I felt so alone.
Right.
So alone.
And so we want to belong to groups, whether it's a sports team or a school. No one wants to be alone. No one wants to be left out.
And that's really why the outreach center is there, is to help people who are blind, who feel so isolated, so separated, to have a place that they can belong.
Right. And if you go back to the book of Genesis, when God created Adam, what did God say? It is not good for the man to be alone.
Alone.
So he created a partner. And Jesus even recognized our need for fellowship with
Mm-hmm.
one another. This is an important
Mm-hmm.
part of the church ministry, any organization. Everyone wants to feel a part of the organization.
Okay, so belong.
And number three, it's kind of similar, but it's different. It's that people want to participate. And what this means is that most people desire to be in the game than to watch it. Now, granted, we're not all professional football players. We can't all be
Right,
down the field, and we enjoy watching that. But
right.
if there's a neighborhood game of football going on, would you rather sit there and watch everybody else do it, or would you rather get in the game and try and play? Even if you're not any good at it, people still like to participate. It's kind of like the previous
Yeah.
example about being on a baseball team.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's only one play, at least you've gotten in the game. Do you remember the movie Rudy? Great movie, where the young man that went to Notre Dame and wanted to be on the football team, and he
Mm-hmm.
he was on the practice squad for 4 years, never got in a game. But on the last game of his college career, they let him in the game just so he could participate in one play,
Uh,
and that was so important to feel part of something, that you made a contribution. And so
yeah.
it's important to recognize that people want to participate so they can contribute to what's going on.
As you're saying that all of that about participate, boy, that resonates with me. A lot of people wonder, why is there such a high rate of not going to worship? 95% of people who are blind are unchurched. And I think this is one of the reasons. When you go and you sit in church, but you can't see the songs, you can't see the hymnal, and you're just sitting there, though you're there, you're not participating. And so you don't necessarily feel like you belong. And sometimes you'd rather not even be there because you can't participate.
That's very true. The number one reason that people leave churches is because they don't make
Mm,
connections. They are not able to participate in what's going on. And so and
yeah.
so even though they may feel they belong, if they're not allowed to participate, they may leave and go find that somewhere else.
So we really need to make sure that people have the opportunity to participate when we have outreach center ministries or any other type of ministry.
And it's not only that we find ways, but we intentionally, if you're looking at a particular individual, how do I
Hmm.
help that person participate in the ministry of this center?
Okay.
What can they do? And sometimes it's just maybe their role is to open the door every day
Yeah.
or make the
Yeah.
coffee for the center, whatever it is that makes them feel a part of what's going on.
Okay.
And then point number four, the last one in this section, is that people want to be valued. And people need to feel useful.
Hmm.
In other words, they need to feel as though what they are doing is important to the overall area of the ministry.
Mm.
And it's kind of a difficult concept in some ways, but I think internally we understand what it means to be valued, that someone thinks that what we do is important.
Well, I think this one resonates in many different ways with people who are blind. So many people who are blind feel as though society doesn't value them. They're
Right.
they're discarded like a broken pen. We throw it away. Well, if you're blind, you're broken, and they throw them away.
Yes.
And so again, being valued, that you're special, that you can belong, that you have participation, moving back to the other two, but not just those two, but that they have worth, I think is something that we can resonate to.
Right. And here's another key principle. If people feel valued, they will volunteer.
Mm,
But if people don't feel like they're of any value, they'll never volunteer for anything. They'll never step forward in faith because they think it doesn't
yeah.
matter, that nobody cares about what they can contribute.
Wonderful. And I need to add there then too, even with the sighted volunteers, it's one thing to, oh yeah, yeah, well, in fact, slaves, they weren't valued. They were just seen as a commodity. You're serving my meal and off you
Yes.
go. Well, we need to be careful that we don't treat our volunteers who are helping as though they're just indispensable, they're dispensable like a slave. But we need to appreciate them and value them for what they are doing.
Absolutely.
So let's recap these four again. Number
Again,
one,
number one is that people are unique.
unique.
And so we need to treat them all as individuals.
Number two,
Is that people want to belong.
belong.
So we need to include them in the organization, make them part of the organization.
Number three,
Is that people want to participate, that there's got to be an area that a person can make a contribution to the organization.
and number four.
Is that people want to be valued, that when they do participate, that they're seen as being an important part of what the organization is doing.
Okay, we've gotten 4 of the, what did you call them?
8 principles of
Principles.
managing people.
Managing people. So what are the last 4?
The last 4, number 5 is that people want respect.
Respect.
Number 6 is that people want recognition.
Recognition.
People want direction.
Direction.
And people want information.
Information. Okay. So the first one of these set of 4 is respect.
Respect. Now this is very close to being valued, but it's slightly different.
Okay.
Valued is feeling useful, that you're making a contribution. But respect is about dignity. It's about your intrinsic value, not only to God, but to the organization. People want to be thought of as no different than anybody else.
Okay.
And so we can't look at somebody as having limitations or having inabilities. We have to look at what are the abilities and skills, the assets they bring to the organization.
That's a key element that we do stress through our outreach centers. Don't look at people's limitations. Instead, ask what assets, what can they provide?
Right. People matter to God, so they should matter to us.
Yes.
So we never want to treat someone with less dignity than anybody else. Everyone needs respect. The next one is people want recognition. And this simply means that when people do a job, they need to be recognized. They want affirmation that they're doing the job well. Sometimes that is simply a pat on the back. Sometimes it might mean a public recognition. For some people, you might have to give a trophy or a plaque or something if they do something outstanding.
Okay.
But people want to be recognized. And the worst thing you can do is to take credit for what someone else did.
Oh,
Because when you take credit for what someone else did, they become very bitter. And they say, wait a minute, I did all the work, and yet this other person is getting all the credit. That's not fair. And so what happens is if you don't recognize people, they'll slowly begin to stop doing things for you. Because what's the point of working for you if you're going to take all of the credit for it?
I can see that both with our sighted volunteers as well as with blind volunteers. I know some of the centers have, once a year, they recognize those volunteers. Just actually one center, when they all gathered, they did this secretly, believe it or not, that when they all got there, those who were blind said to the volunteers, okay, now you sit down and we are going to serve you the meal. And we want to say thank you because we recognize how valuable you are. And they recognize them by saying thank you and serving them and making the meal special for them.
Right. And this does 2 things. Number 1, it shows them that they're appreciated. That what their contribution was is of value and is appreciated. Number 2, it builds their confidence. It builds the knowledge that they can do some things that are adding value to the organization.
And that can keep them going for months and months.
Right.
Okay.
And it encourages them to do even more and find other ways that they can contribute to the organization.
So we have respect, we have recognition.
Yeah, the next one is that people want direction.
Direction.
And how many times do people work for an organization and they never know where the organization is going? Or they don't know, why am I here? Why am I doing this job? What does it contribute to the overall goal of the organization? So people just need direction, which means they need to know what is the vision of the organization, what's the goal we're trying to achieve, and what's my part in that goal? How am I contributing to what we're trying to accomplish as a ministry?
And that's why you took time and impressed upon us in chapter 1 that a leader sets a vision, sets goals, lets people know where we're going, what we're doing.
Right. I mean, people get excited when there's a big goal. For example, for church, our church right now is going through a church plant, and we're going to call a pastor and we're going to go try and plant another church. It has everybody energized because now we've got a vision, we've got some goal, and everybody wants to, how can I help this? What can I do? Can I participate on this committee or get involved in this aspect of the church plant? And it just makes people want to get involved in some way.
That's an excellent idea. Your example makes me think usually once or twice a year our outreach centers with the leaders, blind and sighted, have what we call a roundtable meeting. They kind of plan out the next 6 months. That maybe after that's done, they should announce to the whole group in the next gathering, here's what we've set out for in the next 6 months, each month what we're going to do. Let people know the direction, what's going to happen
Right.
Because even as you said, others might go up, hey, have you thought about, and hey, I could do this, and they can fill in many of the things to make it even that much better.
Absolutely. And so when you give people
Wonderful.
direction, they start thinking of ways they can contribute and participate,
Okay.
and they'll volunteer. So that's a good thing to remember that people do want direction. People don't like to work in a vacuum where they don't know
Yeah.
what's going on, which leads to the last point,
Ah,
and that is that people want information.
indeed.
And so whether it's information they need to do their job,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it's information about the organization or the community, whatever it is, people want to be in the know.
They
They
want to
don't
be in
want
the
to be
know.
in the dark.
Sure. That one relates a lot. So often, people who are blind and people are kind-hearted, but do a disservice when, oh, we'll just take care of you. You just sit here, and I'll come and get you later, and they don't inform them what's happening and what the whole plan of the day is or the activity,
Right.
and they don't have information. They feel lost.
Right. And sometimes it may be information about that's relevant to their job. And if
Mm.
and one thing leaders do very often, which I think is a mistake,
Okay.
is they assume people know things.
Ah.
There's always, just because you said it one time in church, you announced it at an employee meeting, doesn't mean that everybody remembers, that everybody was there. And you make big assumptions when you assume that
Mm.
everybody knows something. And I believe that if something is important, you need to repeat it often and tell it over and over again so that people understand, and that they have the knowledge that everybody else does. Because you can have, a big mistake happen if people are not informed. Because if people don't have the information, you know what they do?
Mm.
They make it up.
They make it up.
Oh, they make up their own
Ah,
decision about what's going on.
okay.
And so it's good for a leader to inform others, to keep everybody informed as to what's going on. That will help them do their job better. It'll help them know how to participate. And it'll make sure that people are not unaware of what is happening and why.
So, in recap, these four. The first one
People
was
want respect.
respect,
People want recognition.
recognition,
People want direction.
direction,
And people want information.
information. Okay, now that we've covered these 8 principles, actually, let's just recap all 8 once again.
Okay? People are unique. People want to belong, participate, be valued, respect, recognition, direction, and information.
Okay. How do I apply this in the development of people?
Okay, I'd like to recommend about a 5-step process that I think will help us understand how to use these principles. First
Okay.
of all, we want to include people. Knowing that people want to belong and participate, we just need to invite people into the process.
Okay.
So don't exclude people from being involved in various activities that they may be able to contribute to.
Okay.
So the first step is to include them. Second step, respect them. Once you've invited them to participate, don't ignore their input or treat them as though they have nothing to offer, but value what they contribute to the group.
Even if you don't like it?
Even if you don't like it, say appreciation. And I can give you a good example of this. Many
Mm.
times people in our church offer to sing solos.
Okay.
And they go up there and they sing, well, maybe they're not as good as you or I think they ought to be. But when they're done, I always make a point in saying, thank you for sharing your gift with us today.
Very
I
good.
don't say you sung good or bad. I just said, thank you for sharing
That's
as
a
an encouragement.
good
And
observation.
you may not
Thanks.
use them again, but that's okay. You haven't devalued them. You haven't disrespected them by treating them as if they didn't make a contribution.
Okay.
Step three, train them. Don't just bring people into the process and assume they bring all this knowledge and skills into it. You may have to actually train them how to do a job or train them on some aspect of how you would like them to act. And basically, that's what we're doing today with this audio training. We're providing
Mm-hmm.
some additional training to your center leaders to
Mm-hmm.
help them do the jobs that you may want them to do.
In fact, that's one of the other chapters. We talked a lot about training and how important that is, and the many steps that can go into that, including that follow-up, checking in to make sure they're taking their steps and procedures.
Right. And it's hard to do tasks if you don't know what you're doing. If you're not
Mm-hmm.
sure what you should do or how to do something, you can waste a lot of time
Yeah.
trying to, figure things out. So you have to sometimes train people.
Okay.
Step number 4 is recognize them. Is that after they've contributed, if they're participating, make sure you show your appreciation for their efforts and their contributions to the group, whatever they are, however minimal. Everyone is contributing something. And the last thing you want to do with people is to somehow disrespect them or somehow treat them as if what they're doing is not important, because that will guarantee that they won't volunteer, that they won't want to participate in the future.
So
And
even as you had said, if, at the end of that song, good or bad, you said thank you. Minimally,
right,
to thank people recognizes them.
right. That's just a simple recognition, appreciation, and give them credit for what they've done.
Very good.
And then the last step is to reward them if that's appropriate. So, for example, if somebody does something that's really, outstanding, maybe you need to give them a plaque or reward them with a small gift. Maybe take them out to lunch just to say,
Mm,
"Hey, what you did was great, and I appreciate it."
mm.
You don't have to give people money. You don't have to sometimes give people anything more than acknowledgement that what they did was appreciated.
I know some of the best gifts of recognition and reward that I've been given is something that has been made by that person, because
Yes.
that means then they went to time and energy to make something for me.
Right. It can be something that's made or something that's very personal. That
Very
because you know
personal.
that person, you know what they
Mm-hmm.
like, you get them something that they can either wear very proudly or just show to other people that, hey, I got this because I was recognized by my organization for a contribution. And I think that's very important for people to feel rewarded if they've done something that's exceptional.
So again, in recap, the ways to apply these principles of people development are
Are first of all, include them.
include,
Second, respect them.
respect,
Third, train them.
train,
Then, recognize them.
recognize.
And finally, if appropriate, reward them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.